Hi there and welcome. This is the second in a series on immigration being sponsored by the American Democracy Project here at IPFW, as well as the Mike Down Center for Indiana Politics and the Department of History. Thank you for joining us. We have with us a distinguished panel. I'll call you distinguished panelists. We're going to start in terms of introductions with Steve Griebel.
And my name is Steve Griebel, and I'm an attorney, a partner with Van Gilder and Trzynka. I've been practicing here in Indiana for about 10 years. And I've become an immigrant lawyer in part because a brother of mine had indicated that he felt our area was underserved. He was a former assistant chief counsel at the Bureau of Immigration and Customs Enforcement in Western New York, and he'd been practicing there for 5 years and now is a private lawyer, and noticed that there's really only a few attorneys in the Fort Wayne area. So he approached our firm and suggested that we look into this area. And we met with Catholic Charities and with a few lawyers that are practicing, some judges, and determined to commit to this practice. The idea is that our firm can not only help people with advice and applications and paperwork, but if necessary, we're willing to go to Chicago, go to Detroit, go to Cincinnati. We can hear both in the immigration forums as well as in the courts. So the idea is that some people won't have to leave then Fort Wayne. We have experience in litigating both federal, state courts and in various federal and state agencies. So the issue now is learning this massive amount of immigration law. I've been practicing now in this area for about a half a year. I've already got a number of clients, some naturalization applications pending, as well as people bringing fiancés in from various parts of the country and removal issues. So it's a hot area. One of the biggest areas is our Burmese population, which I know will be discussed later. So we're pretty excited. We think with the new president coming soon, there'll be more changes. So we think we're getting into this area right when there's going to be a lot of demand. So
yeah, it really is a growing area in Northeast Indiana in terms of an area of practice. Our second panelist from the Department of Homeland Security, we have with us Val Obregon.
Good evening, or good afternoon. I'm glad to be here. I'm out of the Chicago District Office, which covers, of course, 3 states, Wisconsin, Illinois, and Indiana. Well, my jurisdiction is a little different. I represent the government that we're talking about today, Immigration Services here, and I'm the Community Relations Officer for that department. What I do is try to inform and educate the public as to what we do and what we don't do. People talk about immigration. You heard La Migra and sometimes in Spanish or in other languages also, about enforcing. This is a whole new area we're talking about now. We're talking about services to the community, benefits. Benefits is Mr. Stevens spoke about, and benefits is you get to speak about also that we provide to the public. I've been doing this for 31 years now. No, I'm not going to retire yet because people will let me retire. But anyway, I've been doing 31 years now, and it's been a great career. And like I said before, it's a new challenge. Things are going to change. We hope people are asking for about amnesty, immigration reform. Is there going to be a sellout? Are we going to give our country away to everybody? No, we're not. We have laws. We're a nation of laws. It's just a matter of how do we enforce those laws equally across the board for everybody, and how do the benefits they provide come equally across the board for everybody. And that's where I'm coming from. And hopefully today's discussion we'll talk about that, because I know before there's a lot of fear in the community. They'll hear about immigration coming, and they'll take off or they'll hide. And they won't seek the benefits that we're trying to provide to them. Legal benefits, okay? So a lot of people can qualify for benefits, but it's just a matter of how to do it and go to the right sources, whether it be an agency that's recognized by us as a proper agency or an attorney who knows the immigration law. Because keep this in mind, not every agency and not every attorney knows immigration law. And it's a very difficult subject sometimes. And if you go to the wrong person, you're going to be paying big money for something you may not deserve. And you're going to pay that money and lose it. And before you know it, you're out $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 for something that you thought you deserved. This is why it's important to ask questions. And if you have questions, please let me know today, because that's what I'm here for. And I'm going to share with you telephone numbers and contact numbers that you can get a hold of and call. You know what the beauty of all this? It's free. Mm-hmm.
That's right. And at the end, we'll put up the telephone numbers and web addresses at the end of the show, so people will be able to see them. And last but not least, we have Nyein Chang from Catholic Charities. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Nyein Chang. I'm originally from Burma. I myself also former refugee from Burma. I resettled as a refugee in 1994. I've been working with the Catholic Charity a little bit over 8 years already. So we provide the service for the Refugee Resettlement service for the transitional living in the United States. Also, we helping them to the process to adjust their status to become the permanent resident and also to become the citizen of the United States. So although we provide a different service for the immigrant and the refugee population from the Catholic Charity, so employment services, so bridge services, many different the program we are providing people resettling as a refugees, so migrating as an immigrant in this area. So we all understand that. So since 2007, so many refugees start resettling in this area. So we've been challenging with the providing service all the need, and also we've been discussing with the local authority to providing better service, changing the infrastructure for all the immigrants and refugees this area. We all do understand that the far away is growing after getting diverse people from all over the world living in far away. We understand that. So we do have a representative from the Department of State and then also Attorney at Law. So I can share with you about the refugee resettlement in this area, how they can become the permanent resident and also how they can become the citizen of the United States. Thank you.
Very good.
You know, if I can add to what you just mentioned, you did. It's true. Refugees, immigrants, it's true. We're changing. We are changing. Look at this here. This is your America. Just for here alone, it's a change here alone, because before you wouldn't see someone like me, short, Dr. Hansen, speaking to you. All right? You see somebody else who looks maybe like the attorney here, or like yourself. But now things are changing. Fort Wayne, Indiana, for example, it has changed a lot. A lot of refugees are coming into this area. A lot of immigrants are coming to this area. Immigrants, who are they? Who are the immigrants? They're your neighbors. They're your colleagues. You go to work with them. You go to school with them. Okay? Sometimes, you know what? You even marry them. Immigrants, they're coming here legally, as we know, through a spouse, through a family member. Immigrants who are trying to come here to this country legally. We also know we have immigrants who are coming into this country illegally, through any means possible, as you say. Hiding, crossing terrain. But you know what? They're coming from all over the world. You know what? There's also more than one border where these immigrants are coming from. Not just a southern border. There's also a northern border, eastern border, and western border. They're all over, coming from everywhere. Immigrants. Then you have what you call your refugee population. People who are coming here because they're in turmoil, because their country may be suffering. Because of why? Food. Because of economic reasons, political reasons, which is another avenue, which is called political asylum. People seeking that type of assistance from us, from our country, from our home. People who are refugees saying, you know what, I can't live at home anymore because I don't have enough there. I want to provide for my family. And who doesn't want to provide for their family? Who doesn't want to provide for family, especially when you see someone dying of hunger, okay, or can't even drink any water because he can't even get clean water? Refugees. Immigrants, it's two separate categories here. I'm trying to bring points to you. I mentioned just three already. Political asylum. People fleeing their country for what's the word? Persecution. Why? Because if they speak up, what happens to them? They're going to get killed. Not them, the family members. So that's three different areas we can talk about. But, you know, I hate to jump the gun on you, but it's amazing how, like I said, every time I come out to community organizations and do presentations, the diversity that's out there that people see. And you'd be surprised that, you know, you look around now, I mean, like I said before, someone comes to your house, who's this? Mom, Dad, this is my new boyfriend. Or Mom, this is my new girlfriend. And guess what? you don't look like you. You look different. You know why? Because it happened to me already. And then you say, whoa. It wakes you up. I'm sorry.
Well, that's okay. Let's get a little more specific about those different categories. You mentioned immigrants, you mentioned refugees, you mentioned folks who are here seeking political asylum. Can you give us sort of a brief definition of each of those three categories and any other categories you think?
I'll do the best I can because everybody has their own definition. The government has a definition. I have my definition, of course, but I'll give you my definition of an immigrant. To me, it's someone that's trying to come into the country legally, okay, or illegally, trying to get a benefit to remain in this country, to remain here, okay, whether through a marriage, and which we'll talk about in a few minutes, how do you go about doing that, through a sponsorship, immigrants are trying to get here, to work and become legal residents of this country.
So the desire is to be here long term.
Long term, to remain here, to make this their home. And we hope that's what happens. And there's also a policy. We have a policy about that too, okay, which we can go into, but I'll go into later on. Then, of course, you have your refugees, people who are fleeing. You mentioned a while ago, Burma, okay, and other countries who are refugees, people who have a need, okay, that are coming as refugees, and that's a whole different perspective also, how they're coming, okay. Sometimes also through sponsorships. Also, organizations, Catholic Charities sponsors a refugee program. World Relief sponsors a refugee program, okay. So they sponsor people to come here and reside here in the country.
And for them, the desire is not necessarily to become a citizen and stay long term. The desire may be to return home.
If they can.
If they can.
If they can, because, I think that's everyone's dream. Even if you're an immigrant to come here, is to go back home eventually. But you know what, though? You don't go back home.
Yeah.
You never go back home. That was my dad's dream. My dad was an immigrant. He came here. He worked here. That was his goal, to go back home, make some money, buy his little farm plot out there and have his house out there and go back home.
Can I add something?
Sure.
From my knowledge of the difference between the refugees and the immigrants and the asylees population. So just like I stated before, I was myself a refugee from Burma. So since I left the country, I couldn't be able to go home because I am refugee.
Right.
Because the reason is I'm the well-founded fear of persecution. If I'm going home, I'm going to be arrested, or I'm going to be tortured, I'm going to be sent me to the prison because of the country's mess, because of the military government. So by myself, I was well-founded persecution of my belief in the politics. That's why I couldn't be able to go home. Just like the Mr. Obregon said, so within the immigrant population, refugee also immigrant in this country too. Just like the Mr. Obregon said, we have a documented people and then undocumented people. But so far my knowledge, all the refugee resettled in this country, all these people are documented people. And you were screening by the Homeland Security and Department of State, Immigration Service. They are legally undocumented people in this country.
And you received your status when you were still in Burma, whereas asylees, as I understand it, they get their status while they're here already. So the difference is you've obtained your status before you came here through government permissions, and asylees were here, and now they're seeking asylum.
Correct.
Yeah, and it's a subtle difference, but an important one.
Yes,
because
it is.
You're talking about when you got designation to be here and stay here.
Also, a little bit, let me continue. So immigrant populations, that they may be the documented or they may not be the documented population. But the thing is a little bit different because a refugee couldn't able to go home. But immigrants, sometimes they might want to go home. True. They may have an opportunity going home to visit back to where they came from. Asylum people, they might came here this country for the student visa, upon the visiting visa, business visa. The time being they were in the United States, because of something changed in their home country, they couldn't be able to go home for threatening their life. That's time they considered adjusting their status in the United States. Sometimes they are eligible to grant asylum to live in the United States. That's my understanding of the between generally definition of the asylum, immigrants, and refugees.
And for folks who live in the United States, the concept that you could go someplace as a visitor or go someplace for school and that your home would become so disrupted that it would be unsafe to go back, that's kind of a foreign concept to us because things are so stable here.
Right.
But we have to recognize, we hope, yes, we hope. But we have to recognize that in other
True.
countries that's not necessarily
True.
the case.
True.
So at Catholic Charities now, your job is almost exclusively with refugees. It wasn't originally. Originally you dealt with immigrants and with refugees, and Catholic Charities does a little bit of both. But now you're 100% dealing with refugees.
I used to dealing with some kind of portion, devoting my time working for the immigrant population too. But right now, for all of my 100% clients are refugees. But all the refugees resettled in this country, from their 1 year from their arrival date, they are eligible to change their status to apply for the permanent resident green card. Whoever they are holding the green card from 5 years from their arrival date, they qualify to adjust neutralize dual citizenship in the United States. So that means if when the refugee became the 1 year from the arrival date, they coming back to our refugee resettlement department seeking assistance how to fill out the form, where they can get to adjustment of their status. So that means, so even though my clients all are refugees, so I partially we are still helping them into the adjustment of status in the United States.
And part of what, as I understand, you're dealing with, working with the influx of refugees, is they have to get jobs, they have to be fed, they have to, if they want to drive, they have to have licenses, they have to work with the BMB, there's English problems, there's assimilation issues with the schools, so there's a myriad of issues, and sometimes communities like ours struggle to try to meet those needs. Is that fair?
That is the correct. Since the 2007, so the number of refugee arrival is rapidly increased. So Catholic Charities resettled 632 refugees within a 5-month period. So that's time. So that the infrastructure, the resource, community resources are not ready for the number of refugee arrivals. So that is time. So Catholic Charities being asking very often. So we are not ready. Why the number of refugees are resettled by the Catholic Charities? So we've been explaining to the education in the community. Also, the number resettled in this area are not controlled by the Catholic Charities. So here's from the person from the Homeland Security. Department of State, Bureau of Population, Refugee and Migration, Homeland Security, the government control the number.
Where'd they go?
Yeah.
So we are just the agency provide the service.
In fact, if I remember, you said that when you came to the United States, since you had no relatives elsewhere, the government decided where you were going to go live.
That's correct. So that's the 10 of the refugee resettlement programs are two different cases. We used to resettle a free case and the anchor case. The free case means refugee being asking the question before they come into the United States in the refugee camp and allowing the country, the second asylum country, do you know somebody live in the United States? This time refugee answered, yes, I do know. My brother lives in the United States in New York. This refugee was reunited with his brother in the United States. So if refugee said, no, I do not know nobody living in the United States, so that means that one of the state and the refugee processing center, they control the allocation process. When I resettled, so I didn't know no one lived in the United States, so my allocation was forthwith.
And it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy, too, because once you have refugees settling someplace, and then when more refugees from the same area settle, they're going to say, yes, I know someone from Fort Wayne. So how does, and it's a little unfair to ask you since it's a State Department question, Val, but how does the State Department decide what the carrying capacity, so to speak, is of a community to deal with?
Sometimes what I know about it, because I used to work in a refugee program also with the Department of Justice back then, they look at, first of all, which community or which agencies, apply for this grant. If that agency wins that grant, then they're going to send to that agency. It could be Fort Wayne, it could be someone else. Agencies that really can actually qualify to do the services that you just mentioned. Yeah, provide the education, provide the housing, be able to support that group of individuals that are coming. That's the first step. But then, as you mentioned earlier, if there's a family member there that lives there, they're going to try to put that person with their family member.
Sure.
This is what they want to live with someone that's already here, so that person can be responsible for that refugee. Okay, because we will hope that that individual will help the refugee assimilate, learn how to do whatever you do here in this country. Give a driver's license, find out how to dial a phone number. I remember one time also when we were dealing with the Vietnamese population, refugees also, up in Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. It was a very difficult time and also up in Minnesota, because of the language barrier, the cultural barrier. We had to go back and retrain officers and people and refugee resettlement how to deal with this different population. Also, the history of the Vietnamese population and the Hmong population, the Cambodian, what they went through, how they supported us during the war. And people didn't know this. Why we help these people? Well, you know what they did for us? Wow, I wasn't aware of it. But we had to retrain ourselves and prepare ourselves also before we brought the next batch of refugees and be better prepared.
Sure.
Because sometimes communities are caught off guard. We don't tell our mayors, we don't tell our community, we don't tell our infrastructure what's happening. We don't even tell our universities at times. You know what? We're going to have 500 people, new refugees, in this community, and we don't tell no one. And that was bad. And that was wrong, because it was our responsibility, I think the government's responsibility also, to let the community know, you know what, mayor, police chief, we're going to be doing this in your community because Catholic Charities or World Relief or whoever has applied for this grant and you received it. But this is money. This is going to be money that's going to be going to you guys also, to the community itself. A lot of that money that's invested goes also to the community for whatever they want to build or whatever they want to do. It's something in return, not just here, take them and that's it. Mm-hmm. But the bad thing is we never told people as to what this is all about. And we did, and I think that the State Department did a very bad job of doing that. And I think hopefully we learned a lesson, and we're learning lessons about that. That before you send somebody out into your community, find out what's going on first of all. Let them know, prepare them.
One of the things that lawyers try to do in the area is not just help with the paperwork and with status, but a lot of the immigrants, and although my family came in the 1830s, and that may seem a long time ago to a lot of people, the population is still much the same, hardworking and good family people, and so one of the things the lawyers want to do is help with a lot of the legal issues that everyone's going to run into, whether it's incorporating businesses, restaurants, any kinds of businesses, and then people are going to have family issues, marriages, divorces, sometimes, unfortunately, criminal issues, sometimes alcohol offenses. So what lawyers can also do to help assimilate is help them get through the legal problems. True. Because if they don't, it's even worse, because they don't even understand what's happening to them in our system, which is supposed to be fair and due process. So that's part of what lawyers are trying to do in the area as well.
And it's really a more holistic approach is what we're talking about, making sure that all parts of the community, since it affects all parts, really are much more informed about this. Val, do you have any idea what sort of percentage of refugees who theoretically would love to go home at some point in time decide to end up seeking citizenship, become naturalized citizens?
Well, I know one thing. We had an increase in applications. I mean, I don't have the number now, but it just shot up this past year alone. People applying to become new citizens, and once they become citizens, they're here permanently.
Right.
Also, let me go back a little bit. Earlier, we talked about refugees, political asylees. After they're here, after a year of proving that they can remain here, you can follow the laws, will learn the language. After that 1 year, then we adjust to residency. They get that famous little card. Green card we talk about, which is white, blue, whatever.
Right,
I don't know what color.
Rarely green.
Green.
Rarely green.
So they get that card. They have other benefits that we have, except for one. You know what it is, right?
Big vote.
The big vote to vote.
Yep.
That's the only one they have. But everything else they can do. The only thing is, but there's a difference. There are laws, a catch to it. If you have one of these cards that you pull out right now, because I have to make you a citizen pretty soon. If you have one of those cards, you have to remain in the country because you're a resident of this country, of our country. If you go back home with that card and stay over a year or 6 months to a year back home, you actually You've relinquished your residency, and we can take it away from you. Because why? You're a resident of this country, not over there. Mm-hmm. And I give people warnings about this. And as a matter of fact, tomorrow we're doing a workshop to warn the public. You've got to be living here. You can't be living abroad as a resident, because if you're living across in some other country with these cards, and you try to come back, and with all these checks and balances now, they're going to find out. And when you're coming back, let's say from Germany, from Poland, from Mexico, wherever you're coming from, coming back to claim your residency again, you're going to say, wait a minute, where have you been?
I have a case right now where the gentlemen are from the Middle East, and they had come here actually as refugees, actually asylees. They'd applied and demonstrated a specific threat to them personally. Then they had been involved with the military, and that's why they were being persecuted. One of the boys went back to marry, and he was back long enough now that now he's going to have a problem coming back, and also trying to bring his wife. So it's that kind of an issue. They now have new issues to deal with because they didn't, I think, seek legal advice or at least any kind of advice before they went back and married.
So it's also people ask political asylum or refugee status, and you give them the status. The first thing they ask me, I want to go home now. Wait a minute. You just got here. You come as a refugee, welfare, or whatever, and now you're telling me you want to go home now? I go, please, I'm not going to talk about. Wait a while and then go home afterwards. But you can't do it now because you can apply for it, but once you leave, that's it. You've lost opportunity to adjust to become a legal permanent resident, and this is what people don't try to understand. It's fine if you qualify for it, great. Then remain, but remain the time necessary to then become a resident. And after you're a resident, then, as I said earlier, apply to become a U.S. citizen. And there's a process for it also. There's a process for everything. And you've got to follow that process or else you can get yourself in big trouble. This is why we depend a lot. I depend a lot on organizations like yourself and attorneys also. Information I get, do me a favor, can you help this individual out? I can't give you legal advice. I can give the best I can. But because of my job, I cannot go out there and give you exact advice. I can give you more or less, but it depends more on yourself. And there's attorneys also, do me a favor, I got this situation, can you help them out?
And so what do you think in terms of legal practice, you've chosen to go into this area, where do you think the bulk of the work is going to come from? Will it be naturalization? Will it be those other issues you mentioned, like making sure that people who want to start a business understand how to do so? Where do you think the bulk of the work will be?
Well, I think the bulk of the work is going to actually depend a little bit on the elections and then what the nation is going to have to do to deal with the incredible number, millions, 12 to 20 are different estimates of people, or as some would call illegal or undocumented. That's going to be a huge issue because once law goes into place and changes, I think the last major law was maybe in the 1990s.
Correct.
That's going to be a major source of work. And then the side work is what I had alluded to earlier, where not only do we help people then adjust their status or somehow fit the needs and legalize their situation, but then there's all the spin-off work too because people have to survive. So people are going to need to have lawyers, and a firm like ours, which does general practice, then can help in a variety of different matters. A benefit, so it's one thing we didn't talk about a little bit. Some benefits, public assistance benefits, are available, but a lot of those are limited, time limited.
True.
And so it runs out, and then there's these crisis points, and then what do people do? And they have to find work somewhere. So there's just so much need out there, some of which is legal, some of which is social work. So our firm, though, right now I think is going to be dealing with a potpourri of issues. There's a lot of employment-based work, people that come here to fit jobs and special needs employment. But right now my clientele, I get calls all types of issues. Students at IPFW who want to stay or extend their visa. Sometimes it's just extending their permits, essentially. They're here for time-limited durations, and they have to continually update their documentation to be here legal. So there's right now just a mix, but I think it's going to change once new laws are passed on the national level.
Sure. Well, let's shift a little bit. Let's start talking about the actual process. And we have a graphic that we're going to show you that's somewhat humorous and at the same time also still accurate in terms of the steps that are involved. In an ideal situation, Val, how long should it take someone to get through the process, the naturalization process?
As of right now?
As of right now. As of today.
In our district?
In our district.
4 months.
4 months.
It used to take 3, 4, or 5 years. But we've improved our systems, of course. Of course, our fees went up with that. But right now, in our district in Chicago, which covers part of Indiana, it's 4 months. If you apply today, let's say 5 months now, because there was a spike in the increase in applications. If you apply today, first you have to be ready to apply. The first thing I tell people, before you take the application, before you fill it out, do me a favor, test them. In here I have the new cars for the test, the new test we're going to be giving out, which starts you'll probably won't see the new test coming out. Actually, it's already in place now. People won't be tested on this for maybe January or February, because the deadline was October 1st to apply. If you apply before October 1st, you get the old test. You apply after October 1st, you're going to get the new test, which is using this new system here. But it usually takes anywhere from 5 months. You apply today, in 5 months, you will be interviewed, you will be tested, and if you pass everything, you'll be fingerprinted to make sure that you have no criminal background.
Right. That's part of the Biometric Services?
Yes, sir.
Right.
It's all in the package together. Once you're fingerprinted, we know when you come to the interview, we know everything about you. So if you lie to us,
and lying's bad, isn't it?
Very bad.
Lying's bad.
Lying's bad.
The Biometric Services is the idea of fingerprinting and photographs where databases are then compared, and that's to help protect our country, among other things, and also to find out if there's convictions and a variety of pretty much anything. And then at the interviews, if you don't volunteer and if questions are asked and you're vague or evasive, or you're going to have a moral character issue.
That's
That's going to be a problem.
And you're supposed to be of good moral character in order to be admitted.
Exemplary.
And I want to ask both Steve and Nyein a question, and that deals with, Val said you got to be prepared when you start the process. And I'm guessing that some of your clients may not be the best prepared folks, may not quite be ready. What sort of major stumbling blocks do they usually hit? What have they not prepared themselves for?
For my clients, as a refugee, just like I said, after 1 year, they're going to be adjusted. The permanent resident card just showing the green card. So after 5 years, whoever have the green card, they can neutralize to be a citizen. The obstacle for the elderly refugees, they couldn't able to be learn enough English to answer all the 100 questions, new question, old question. Sometimes they couldn't able to be learn how to write the English. So that's time. So once they neutralize it to be a citizenship test coming, personal interview, my experience, I seen some people, they fail the test. So one time they fail the test, they're going to be refined. Another second time they fail the test, so they fail again. So that means this is a major obstacle for the elderly refugee because they do not have enough the adequate English skill to answer the question, to write whatever they've been asking in the citizenship test. That's for the refugees.
But we're talking about someone would be in refugee status for 12 months, and then they could apply for permanent resident for their green card.
Correct.
And then they would spend 5 years in that status, and then they would begin the process. So there really is a lot of time to prepare to get yourself ready.
But if I can insert for a minute, for elderly people, okay, people that are elderly, there's a waiver, okay. If you're 50 years of age, okay, 50 years of age, and you've been a resident for this country for 20 years, you can take the exam in your own language. If you're 55 years of age and been a resident for 15 years, okay, take the test in your own language. 65 and over, okay, you can take the test in your own language, okay. So there are exceptions. Okay, we also have what's called a medical waiver, okay, where if someone's physically unable or mentally unable to learn, okay, because of a medical disability, okay, they go to a doctor, a real doctor, and you get this waiver filled out. If the waiver tells us enough information saying, yes, this person cannot take the exam because of medical reasons, that person doesn't take an exam. We've gone to people's homes, nursing homes. If the person can tap in the hand, nod, blink his eyes, move his foot, he understands what they're doing. Right there and then, we naturalize them. They become U.S. citizens. Because why? Because of that waiver. Okay? I understand it's difficult to learn the language at times. Under the language for elderly people. But you've got to make sure, first of all, you qualify for the waiver. This is why I depend a lot on organizations to go out there and say, you know what, before you even take the exam, look at every option available to you, first of all, because this costs $675.
Just to take the exam?
Just to apply. I calculate maybe $3,000 per applicant because applying, first of all, it takes time to go get the application filled out. Your time.
Right.
It takes time to pay for the application. It takes time to get your fingerprints. It takes time to go to the interview. And it takes time to go get sworn in once you pass the test. So I calculated maybe $3,000 to $4,000. They're going to invest in something. This is why I told individuals, before you even take the application, please, I can ask them a couple of questions. Who is the president of this country? Don't tell me Mexico. I want to know here. Okay, what's the color of the flag of this country? Can you write one phrase out? Who is the president? And spread it out.
And obviously, we're talking here about some nice, helpful aids. We can get these
on our website,
which we'll have up at the end of the show, so people can go and find out how to order the cards.
You can order them. You can even go online. You can print them out yourself. And if you want to spend some paper, some money, you got time for that. Print them out and study.
Can I?
Oh, I brought one for you also. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much.
Can I have a question for you from the Department of State? So, for the refugees people, could you please a little bit explaining about the material support and the patriotic aid because the people after they resettle in the United States, some of the refugees even after the 1 year from the arrival date, when they apply to be a permanent resident, so the case being pending and holding up because of the material support and the patriotic aid law. Could you please explain a little bit about this law?
If you apply for residency and you're asked for more information, there's always more information required of you. And sometimes it's hard to get that information. But we have exceptions also. We will say, okay, if you don't have your birth certificate, then you give us an affidavit from a family member, a neighbor, or someone that knows you, that knew you back then, that can verify your birth date, that you're actually born wherever you're born. Give us some kind of proof that you're medically unfit. Give us some kind of proof that you've been going to school. Give us whatever you can to demonstrate your ability that you can become a legal permanent resident. They say, okay, you have an arrest record. This isn't me. You have to prove to us this isn't you. And how do you prove it? See these here? Fingerprints. We'll take your fingerprints. And if that's not you, they'll say that's not you. But there are ways to do it. This is why some of the attorneys are very important also, because they can go around with all that and say, you know what, let's try this now. Let's try this now. Maybe they'll accept this now. And so this documentation, which it didn't take, maybe we can supply this now, which may take, and we'll accept it. We always try to encourage the applicant. Give us as much information as possible. So when that file comes to us, when you apply for your residency, if we have that file in front of us and we have much information there, we can approve it. Sometimes people aren't even interviewing anymore for residency, because if we can prove that it's a legal marriage, everything's bona fide, we'll notify you by mail. You've already become a resident. Don't bother coming in for an interview, and we're going to mail you your card within 60 days to your home. And you're done.
And the documentation really is, we even know here in the United States, there are folks who, for example, the voter ID law here in the state of Indiana and Real ID, which has basically turned driver's licenses into ID throughout the United States. The documentation that's necessary to get your driver's license updated, even if you were simply born here, is a lot more stringent than it used to be. And there are folks born in the United States whose birth certificates were destroyed when, say, a county courthouse caught on fire or those sorts of things. So imagine the difficulty that exists when you're talking about somebody coming from a country that may not have the sort of infrastructure we have here. So the documentation really ends up being vitally important. And of the folks who you think will be coming to the firm for legal work, how much time do you think you're going to be spending on these documentation type issues? Do you think this is going to be one of the big stumbling blocks?
It's a very time-consuming process, and in fact, the only way that really a law firm can successfully do a practice like this is essentially set up as much that can be done by paralegals as possible, because but it's very detailed, and you really can't afford to make a lot of mistakes, because inconsistencies with names, spellings, any of those kind of errors can really create problems for your clients. And one of the things, just going back to the driver's license issue, for example, I had a call from somebody who just got rejected for an application because he didn't realize he's being accused of a fraud, essentially, because he had signed up to vote when he wasn't a citizen. And his argument was, or at least his saying was, well, they were recruiting when I was when I was getting my license, and he didn't realize, he says, that he couldn't do that, and it's those kinds of things. There's sometimes people don't realize that everything is documented, and everything's going to be known to the enforcement authorities. So when we talked about not being prepared, people don't realize, taxes are issues. When I talked about information, inconsistent information isn't necessarily bad, but if it crosses the line and becomes contradictory, you've got problems, because if dates don't jive, that's one thing, but if it really just can't even happen, if they're that different, now you've got those issues. What if you're helping people? What if you've been charged with crime? I'm not justifying any kind of crime, but sometimes when people are desperate, they do something, whether it's prostitution or stealing or anything like that, those things all come back. So that's the thing I think that scares a lot of people on their path to citizenship, is you're at risk of removal if while you're applying, now you fall, what I would say, you get into the radar, so to speak, and now all of a sudden you're potentially at risk of removal. True. So that's what scares a lot of people that call our firm, is they are just afraid that something they did is going to put them in a removal proceeding.
Mm-hmm. No, that's if I interrupt you. I'm glad we brought up the voting issue, because right now we're having an increase of people that are put into proceedings because they claim they're U.S. citizens or they're registered to vote, and it's a no-no. It's automatically you could possibly be removed if it's proven that you actually signed that card. Mm-hmm. It's because I'm a U.S. citizen, I'm registered to vote, or if you voted, that's even worse. So when you come to our attention, we have to make a decision on that. And 9 out of 10, they may be put in proceedings, move proceedings. Because why? Because it's you can't do it. You cannot claim to be a citizen if you're not. People will apply for loans, even loans, bank loans, school loans. We're citizens. You can't do it. You're asked the question: have you ever applied? Have you ever claimed to become a U.S. citizen? No, I didn't. Are you sure? I know I did it. Are you positive? No, I didn't. Well, you went to IPU, didn't you? And you applied for a student loan. We have your application here saying that you claim to be a U.S. citizen, right? So now what'd you do right now? First of all, I put you on the road. Mm-hmm. You're going to tell me the truth. Second of all, I showed you the application you signed saying you're going to tell me the truth. 3 times I asked you about this. Okay, what's baseball? 1 strike, 2 strikes, 3 strikes. Mm-hmm. You're out, and you're gone. I mean, that's it. Nothing you can do.
And the interviews, I think, are recorded and taped too.
No,
at least in some cases.
It depends who we're bringing in. That's what I'm saying. We know who's coming into the interview. We know if we know it's someone who's committed it was talked earlier. If you have a felony conviction, these are the major ones, the big ones. Mm-hmm. Whether you did it 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, if you have a felony conviction and you're applying to become a U.S. citizen, we find out about it, you're going to be denied citizenship and you're going to be put in proceedings and you're going to be removed because of the felony conviction.
And we should point out that that potential vote fraud that you're mentioning in a number of states, that would be a felony by the state law.
Yes, sir.
And the form, here in Indiana, for example, there are 2 boxes. You actually have to check a box, yes or no, are you a U.S. citizen? And then there's an oath that you're supposed to read before you sign the form that says, I swear and affirm that I am a U.S. citizen. So you've actually done it twice on the Indiana form. In other states have similar situation, which obviously puts you in significant jeopardy. But it would be...
It's not as people say, well, don't worry, they're not going to find out about it. Don't worry about it. They won't know about it. It's 40 years ago. Who's going to know? Who's going to know I sold some drugs back then?
That's correct.
Who knows I was in prostitution back then? Yeah. But they find out about it, and it's all those little things to talk about, those things on your body, fingerprints.
Well, and then the questions you ask, the person essentially hangs themselves, too, because you're just giving them a chance to tell the truth. They're not sure what you know, and they don't want to volunteer.
True.
And that's exactly the problem, because they need to volunteer.
They need to be
even a simple, let's say a small retail theft, something small. Let's say, for example, you ask the question, even residency or citizenship, were you ever convicted of a crime? Any kind of crime, a crime? They say no. Remember about 2 years ago, you were by what's a Walmart, whatever, what's a Walmart? About 2 years ago, a Walmart. I was never by a Walmart. Well, there was a Walmart and there was a hat there one time. Remember that hat? No, what hat are you talking about? You were never by a Walmart at this day, this time, with a hat or a bike that somebody may have stuck to your body for some reason? No, I never stole anything in my life. Well, here's the show them the screen. Mm-hmm. Back in 1985, you were arrested for theft. Okay, retail theft, whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. It's not so much the theft, the money involved, is because the officer asked you 3 times the same question and try to help you out to tell him the truth. Okay, yes, I do remember back then a bike got stuck to me. I did it for whatever reason. Okay, it hooked up to me and I took off with the bike. I didn't pay for it. Fine. Great. Okay, but at least you didn't lie to me. You told me the truth. But it's when the lie comes about saying, I never did it. Here I'm trying to give you the opportunity to pass and tell me the truth, and you don't. Got a luck. So you fail the test.
Well, let's since we've said test numerous times here, actually, and it's been brought up in terms of the changes, and we were lucky enough to have a copy of the old version and the new version
How'd
brought
you get
in.
Off the internet.
The Internet's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
True, it is.
We actually have copies of the old one and the new one here. Let's talk about the test specifically. What kind of questions, what are the most significant changes? Let's start there. What do you think the most significant changes are to the test?
It's going to be the way the test is given. The way the exam is going to be given from now on, because before each district had its own way of doing things, had its own way of administering the test. Either you ask the questions first, and then you talk about the application. We do the application first, and then you talk about the test, the questions and all that. Or you would ask about how to write a sentence out, and then do the rest of the test. But now it's all going to be the same format. The first part is application. You're going to sit down with the officer, of course, put under oath, and you're going to talk about the application first of all. They're going to ask you your name. Easy questions. Because if you can't go to the application, the test is over. Why? Because you don't understand the language. Yeah. So if you can't ask you to raise your right hand, and you pick up your right foot, excuse me, pick up your right hand, and you sit there and look at me, please raise your right hand, and you're looking at me, and so you know what, that's not it. Why go through the whole exam? Sure. And why embarrass an individual? Say, you know what, you're not ready? Can you come back, and you have 60 days to come back, or maybe less? We're going to send another notice to come back. And in 60 days, I don't think you'll learn enough English to pass the test again. So it's up to you, your option, whether you want to come back again or withdraw. Okay? But the only thing about, though, there's no refunds. You didn't get your money back.
Well, how many times can someone take the test?
You take the exam twice.
Twice?
Twice you take the exam. If you fail the first time, you're only tested on what you failed. Not the whole exam all over again. Only what you failed, you're tested again. Okay? But let me go back. You go to the application, first of all. Every single application, it's about a 5-page application, okay? From the beginning to the end. Questions you're asked, questions about your criminal background, about your family, how many times you've been out of the country. You go through a whole gamut of questions, okay? And then you're told, okay, now we're going to go, you've done this part so well, so good. Now we're going into the test itself. The test, the exam. Mm-hmm. Okay?
So the question asking about the criminal check background is the time living in the United States or the time living outside of the United States?
5 years. For the past 5 years.
Within the United States?
Yes.
Okay. 5
years only. Because there's a requirement that says you can't be out of the country. It's called continuous residency of being here. You can't be out of the country for so many days. Because if you're out of the country for so many days, you've lost continuous residency, right. And you've got to wait until you complete the continuous residency requirement.
Right.
Okay. This is why it's important that in the last 5 years we're going to ask you, how many times have you gone back home? How many times have you gone out of the country? I've been out of the country for 2 years. What? You know what? I don't think you're qualified, but also I'm going to have to maybe take away this card because now you've violated that status. Okay. But we're nice. We'll say, you know what? Tell you what, you can't take the test today because these are the reasons why. Mm-hmm. Way to finish the continuous residency and then apply all over again.
Sure.
Okay. After you're done, we ask you the questions. You're going to be asked the question orally. You ask the question, who's the president? Oh, let me show you something. This is great.
And actually, we have the questions that have been shown.
I want to show you my cards.
All right.
I want to show you my cards. Wait a minute. So brand new. I got these yesterday. They came in. I'm going to share them with you. You're the 4 people I share this with. And these are the questions.
These are beautiful cards.
These are cards. This is not it. This is not it. These are the questions. Read that to me.
What is the supreme law of the land?
And now see,
Answer?
Val's cheating because the answer's on his side.
That's the purpose of it. So I'm asking you the question. So what was your response?
Federal law as interpreted by the United States Supreme Court would be what I would say.
Constitution.
But you know what? That would be sufficient for you to pass. Because he had the meaning, the answer he gave me relates to the answer. But this is just a tool that we have out there. And
Answer doesn't need to be the exact one.
No.
Okay.
That's the difference with the exam now. This has to be the exact answer. Now you can be you can deviate a little bit from the answer itself. For example, here's another one. I'll give you the easy one.
Are you sure? Easy one.
Yes.
What does the Constitution do?
What does the Constitution do? What do you think? Just give me out the top of your head.
What does the Constitution do the laws?
Okay, perfect. Sets up the government. What does the government do? Sets laws. So you can deviate from these answers like before.
I'll pass the question.
Before, and you pass. So this is something new. Before they were small, but these are the new ones. This is for the new exam, which probably will kick in until you probably won't see them until, like I said, December, early January. For people who applied after October 1.
So October 2nd was the first
October
day.
1st.
October 1st was
the cutoff date.
Was the cutoff date.
So anybody after that is going to be taking the new test. The new test.
And I'm going to start cramming before you ask me my question.
All right.
Start looking at my answers here.
No, it's okay. I won't ask you. But so, in other words, you answer the questions. That's part of the test. After you get 10 questions. All you need to do is get 6 right. You did 6 right, boom, you're done. You've already passed.
And
that's the oral
this has
part.
all the questions on it.
Yes.
And
Answers.
How many questions in the news version? How many questions altogether?
100 questions.
100 questions.
100 questions.
100 questions.
So applicant that will be asked 10 questions.
What's going to happen is this now. When you come for the interview, each applicant or each officer is going to get a printout. Okay, with the questions.
Randomly generated.
And they're all going to be different. They're all going to be different. It won't be the same question for every single applicant because we found people cheat once in a while. Okay, so we'll get the questions, and you're here. Okay, now you're going to answer those 10 questions orally. So you've passed 6. We're done. And now I'm going to ask you a written assignment. Write this sentence for me. And the sentences are going to be the same also. They're going to be printed out. So you're going to have to write out the sentence. Who is the President of the United States? So you write, who is the President of the United States? You can deviate also. Like the word DA, we'll give you a break. President, PRI, whatever, we'll give you a break, stuff like that. But if it's really bad writing, we won't give you a break.
Do we have to answer
but
the
we'll
question
ask,
too?
Yes.
Okay.
When you're done. But the thing is, if we get it wrong, we ask you again, another question. See if you can spell that question. If you get it wrong again, we'll give you the third time another sentence. If you get that one right, okay, now answer the question now. Okay, so in other words, you'll get three different opportunities to write out your sentence, and now we'll ask you, please answer the question. And now you'll answer the question also in writing.
Now, in addition to those cards, I know Catholic Charities offers free classes twice a year to help people prepare.
Good.
Do you sanction certain classes, or do you just keep your hands off and say, we're not going to weigh in on whether these classes are appropriate or not? Do you?
We at this time, we don't have the resources for that. I wish we did, because I think it's a very important tool to have for us to be able to say, this is what you need to know about these classes. Sometimes they'll call us to go out and monitor, look at what they're doing, and we'll share with them what we know, and then we'll take it from there. But we depend on them to take up these classes, and try to educate people the best they can.
The nice thing about Catholic Charities is they're an accredited agency in our area, and there's accountability, and attorneys, too, are accountable. So that's one of the things that people who get lawyers or accredited agencies, even if they're not all the same expertise, there's accountability. If they don't go to a lawyer and they don't go to an accredited agency, they're dealing with someone who has no accountability to the government. And if they're given bad advice and they find out when they're back home that they got bad advice, there's not a lot that they can do to that person. Lawyers can get disbarred and they can be sanctioned.
True. And also, like I said, that's part of the test, the oral part, then, and the written part. And once you've gotten past that, you know what? If you've done all that, we say congratulations, you've passed everything. We give you a letter saying congratulations. In 30 days or less, you'll be scheduled to come in for a ceremony. And you come in, the judge will swear you in. You are now a U.S. citizen. As a matter of fact, I was telling a little while ago, the person invited me here, and that we did a ceremony at Notre Dame University 3 weeks ago. 300 people were naturalized. Reason why? Because of course the director is his alma mater, but was one of the reasons why. But it helped.
They do in the federal court here at least once a month. But I think IPFW hosted a large ceremony some months ago where a large number of people became citizens.
Good. Well, glad to hear that.
Let me try and summarize a couple of things here. First of all, the folks who are coming here, many of them are hoping to become full-time naturalized citizens with the same rights, including voting, as the rest of us.
True.
And people who want to do that need to keep a few things in mind. Number one, obviously, keep as much documentation as you can. If you have applied for driver's license and those sorts of things, try and keep as much documentation as possible because eventually you're going to be asked for that. Secondly, tell the truth when the government folks are asking you questions because that's a vitally important element. And once you think you're ready to apply, whether it's because you've spent your 1 year in refugee status or your 5 years in permanent residency status, once you think you're ready, you really need to go back and take a look at the entire process, either by working with an agency like Catholic Charities, checking with an attorney, and beginning to accumulate all the necessary documentation, prepare yourself for that, we hope, still about 5-month process to get through the naturalization process.
I don't think there's a change. I know we had a spike actually earlier in the applications, but at the first we ever got out, after we changed everything, it was 7 months. Then it dropped down to 4 months. We had people actually in 3 months actually ready to go. I mean, they're already going to be interviewed. What? Are you ready? 3 months? So they passed. Luckily, they passed. But 4 months, 5 months at the most in our district. Maybe Los Angeles, maybe a little different more, or New York, who knows what. But in our district, it's 5 months at the most. We have. Excuse me. I go back a little bit. There's cases out there also that are stuck. They're called background checks. Before we can move a case and process the file, whether it be residency, whether it be citizenship, you got to pass the muster. Not through us, though. Through the FBI. The FBI has a database to do what's called background checks. If it gets stuck in the FBI database or it gets stuck there, it can take 2, 3, 4 years. Because you have to wait for the FBI to release that file to us to clear that person's name up before we can go further with it. And if it's there, you're stuck. We can't force the FBI. We've had congressmen call people. We have congressmen contact the FBI, contact the White House. They won't release it until that person is actually cleared. Why? Because back then, when we used to be called INS, we made a big mistake. We allowed individuals to come into our country, through visas, residency, tourist visas, to come into our country, learn our systems, learn how to fly planes, and look what happened. And the worst thing about it all, that after one of these guys is already dead, this agency, INS, who I worked with also, back then, granted citizenship to one of those dead applicants. And that was a big mistake. So of course, the agency was abolished. So it created what we call now Homeland Security. All right? And now we got 3 separate branches under this agency called CIS, who I work for, which stands for U.S. United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. You have ICE, which stands for Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Right. And you have CBP, Customs and Border Protection. Each has a separate and distinct function, but it all deals with immigration law. We provide benefits. We also enforce law at times when it comes to fraud, when it comes to people not doing the right thing. But those other 3 agencies are actually, they're more enforcement. Protect our borders, investigate, determine whether you're here legally or committing fraud, which they'll arrest you.
And part of what makes immigration law complicated is not only do you have the DHS and all of those, but you have Department of Justice, Department of Labor, and Secretary of State. So you have all these federal agencies all have a hand in this. So it's complicated.
And this really might be the point where legal advice is perhaps more important than Catholic Charities or another provider.
Legal advice comes in especially handy when things go wrong, and that's the reality. If someone's denied, or that's when lawyers need to look at things and if necessary, sometimes have to challenge it and try your luck with a judge, an immigration judge. So.
And when someone's getting ready to take the test, when they're making it through the process and they're hoping to get that handshake from you, things like this are available.
Yes.
There are other resources available, obviously, Catholic Charities running classes, that sort of thing. This is not inexpensive. as you pointed out, it's time off from work, and then there are also just the straight fees. Are there any resources available to help maybe refugees specifically or some specific category prepare for this?
And our website, okay, if you go on our website, it's www.uscis.gov. One more time, www.uscis.gov. In that website, we have something called educational resources, what do you call a link. There's classes that you can take, fourth level, fifth grade level, sixth grade level, English. You can log into it, open her up, get these cards out. There's all kinds of different materials in there to help you get ready, to prepare. Okay? I've been told, I don't have a computer. I don't know how to do it. I go, wow, you know what? You know, there's a clicker on TV. Yeah, well, you can use a computer. You know, take pictures, you can use a computer. You can use a phone, you can use a computer. So let's think about what we don't have computers. Excuse me. You have libraries. I've gone by some libraries. They're empty. They're empty. You go to the library. They'll help you out.
And you may qualify for a fee waiver, too. There is a process where if you meet the criteria, then you have that $675 fee. Not the biometric fee, but the $675 fee can be waived. So
and that's something that an attorney or Catholic Charities could help out with, right?
Apply for that waiver, right.
Yes. Now, we've all talked a little bit about the upcoming election and what's going to be happening in November of 2008.
He's going to ask me a question?
I'm going to ask a question.
About the debate tonight, I guess.
What do you think the likelihood is that Congress is going to deal with immigration in a comprehensive way? I'm not talking about just tinkering around the edges, but I mean some real major overhaul of immigration. We'll take a shot from each of you, recognizing that our federal government employee is limited in what he's supposed to say about these things.
I would say to the extent that it was going to be a priority, it's definitely been pushed back now in light of the economy, in light of the...
True.
I'm not sure bailout is the accepted term anymore, but I think that is clearly pushed so much back our economy. And then the war situation, I think, has really taken away some of what was going to be a big emphasis on some major changes. So a couple years ago, it wasn't that long ago, there was a lot of issues about Border Patrol and building the fence and just a lot of the issues. But recently, I think it's been pushed back. So I would say it's going to be a year or two at least before we see some pushes that way.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Answer later on it.
You know, I agree with Steve here because right now the economy is bad. We're going through a turmoil. Man, I wake up on the board. I go, oh my God, let me look at my bank statement again. Okay, whether it's true or not. The war, everything else is rough right now. You mentioned earlier about 12 million people, maybe 20 million people who are undocumented illegal aliens, undocumented people right here. That's here already. But we have individuals. Remember this. We have people. For example, I have a brother-in-law through my wife. He's back home in the old country. She applied for him back in 2001. The visas aren't available because right now they're only processing 1992. So by the time he catches up, he'll be about maybe 60 years old. Okay, by the time we catch up. What are we going to do with all those individuals that are outside the country waiting their turn, like some of my ancestors and some of you guys may have done, or your family members may have done, to come here legally? So that's going to be another debate. Question also we have now. What do we do with those out there? I have rights too. All right? You have rights also. Those people, whether they're a resident or they're a citizen, you can apply for a family member outside the country, and they're waiting. But you already have 12 million here, so who has preference?
They're the ones that are actually waiting in line properly, and so they shouldn't be penalized for the people that didn't wait in line. And
that's one of the new frictions that are going on in the immigrant community. Okay, wait a minute. I'm going to support 12 billion here. What about mine that's over there? What about my brother-in-law? What about my mom? What about my dad? What about my wife? What about my kids who are waiting out there for me? I'm going to support this instead. And that's one of the debates that no one's talking about yet. Yeah. It's quiet. This is why we need some kind of a change. We're hoping it happens in the next 2 years. I don't think it's going to happen right away. If whoever becomes president, okay, it's going to take time to filter through all this. You may give it a small approach, but you got to get to the bottom line. What do we do with everybody else who we say have rights? And that's going to be a bigger debate also. So watch for that one.
Nyein?
For me, if we all do understand that election is getting the close the next month and then starting in November, but for my opinion, the immigration reform need to be reviewed for all the people resettling in the United States or coming as an immigrant for the refugees, for the number of refugees, how many number of refugees coming into the United States every year, President, he make a decision every first week at October from everywhere from the war. So that means that's the time in this country we do understand that right now economic crisis is hitting very challenging, especially for the people, immigrants and the refugees in this area, as well as the people born here. So that means my thinking is for the new administration that definitely have to be review the economic infrastructure of this country. That's what I'm thinking. So because just like that, so if now bringing the refugee because of the economic situation, it's difficult, very hard time to find the employment for the people is not speaking English very well. They don't have a transportation. So, but they still need a job to survive in this country. But then for this reason, because of the employment opportunity reason, it's not a big reason to holding the people ready to come into the United States to reunite them with their families. So that's traditionally the American always welcome for the immigrants population. The major thing is we had to be, the Congress had to be to review the economic reform to be better situation for all the people living in the United States, including the immigrant population.
And fortunately, one of the programs in this series that we're doing will be featuring a political science professor actually presenting what the major party candidates are suggesting they might do about immigration. And I have just one last question, a quick one, I hope, and that is, what is the most common reason you hear for people wanting to come here? I mean, really, when it comes down to it, it's neat that people want to come and live where you're living. That's a compliment. True. And so, what do you hear from people? Why do they want to come to the United States, maybe to Chicago or Fort Wayne? What's the attraction?
Opportunity and freedom are the two things over and over again. What an amazing country! If you get here, there's so much available for you. I mean, clearly, our presidential candidate, that's one of the things he's saying too, is just that only in America. Hillary Clinton before. While she was still running, only in America. So only in America over and over again. There's just so much opportunity here if you work hard and are honest and commit to it. So.
And then also, it's a better life, not just for yourself, but for your family. Yeah. Because it's hard to see. I mean, I've been back home. I was born in Chicago. When I say back home, Southside Chicago is my home. Okay, but I'm going to the old country where my parents are from, Mexico, of course. We go back there, and I see what's going on sometimes in those countries. I've been to Cuba, I've been to Panama, and I see to myself, man, it's incredible. The poverty is out there. But then I also see what's going on when Katrina hit in New Orleans. All the poorness, all the people that were... I was out there for a couple of months working out there. And I said, how is it possible that a country like ours, all this wealth, all this knowledge, can allow people who look like us, can't read or write? And I said, wait a minute, what's going on here? So, what makes us come here? A better opportunity to advance, to move on, so you can have something, kids have something to eat. That's what you look for, a better life. I think that's why they're coming. You know what? You can build all the walls you want to build. Okay? You can build all this barbed wire up if you want. You can build walls as high as the Empire State Building. They're still going to come.
Yeah, for me, it's, just the answer is true because of the opportunities, existing in the United States. The first thing, the simple I left the country, I didn't know that I had to be living in the United States, that long. I've been here in the United States 13 years already. For the refugees, that we had to have place to live, but many of the people want to live in the United States for the opportunities and freedom. So the one who first came as a refugee simply or I'm so much happy when I resettled as a refugee living in the United States. First time I came, I really want a better house. I want to drive a car, something like that. So wow, everything is so great to me. But after the 13 years, and reality for me is somebody asking me this time, so I really want it. Why you want to live in the United States is the first thing, the security. It's pretty secure in my life. Second thing is the freedom. Is somebody used to live in the country, it's not secure. You cannot say what you want to say. You cannot write what you want to write. This time you were going to be definitely going to be laugh about freedom and security. That means I'm going to say living in the United States. For me, it's a security and freedom.
Well, I want to thank all of you for coming in. Our guests have been Stephen Griebel from the law firm of Van Gilder and Trzynka, Val Obregon from DHS, and I have to say go Sox for him since he's from the south side of Chicago.
We lost today, too.
Sorry to hear that.
No.
We have to,
It's all right. I'm not going to get upset.
We have to thank Nyein Chang from Catholic Charities for coming here. And I want to remind you that this was brought to you by the American Democracy Project on the IPFW campus, as well as the Department of History and the Mike Down Center for Indiana Politics. Please be sure to check out the other episodes in this series. Thank you very much.